Hey, what is up, guys? I'm Nate,
I'm John.
And I'm Caleb.
and we just watched Takeshi Kitano's 1994 film, Getting Any. And it was insane, to say the least.
Mine, Caleb's first time watching it. Mine. Let me speak for myself on that. But my second Takeshi Kitano film. Maybe Caleb's more than second, but
My second as well.
second. Okay. It was. Strong showing. It's Takeshi Kitano is very quickly becoming one of my favorite directors, and that's not something I even really knew I had was favorite directors. I've always been a pretty casual movie enjoyer, but like the more I watch these movies, I'm like, damn, I really like how this guy makes a movie. I like how he structures it, and I like how he sets his shots up. It's awesome, and it's worth it every time. I get excited every time we're watching a Kitano movie for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Caleb, I've seen this movie. This is one that I found. I've showed it off on the channel before, but I found it was in a thrift store. I found a bunch of different Kitano DVDs, and I don't know who gave up all their Kitano movies, but I remember buying them up and watching them at 12 or 13 years old and loving those movies. And this was one of them. And I had seen Boiling Point. I had seen some Brother and one other. I feel like Satoichi. And so I knew the serious Kitano, but then seeing this, and this is the silly, funny Kitano. So I thought it was such a far cry from what I had seen of his movies, and it really shows his range for sure. So, Caleb, what did you think about Getting Any?
It's so, like I said, before, we started recording, it reminded me a lot of After Hours.
Mm-hmm.
Who was it? Scorsese? No, it wasn't Scorsese.
Scorsese.
Was it Scorsese? Okay.
Yeah.
It reminded me of that film. It was just all over the place. Something's happening all the time. You think he's going to get it, and he doesn't get it. It's crazy all the time movement. But it wasn't a boring film. It kept you entertained. There was always something that was just, you didn't know what you were going to see next. I think, in a lot of films, from my point of view, you always kind of have an idea of what you're going to see next. But in this, you didn't know if you were going to see the most off-the-wall thing that you've ever seen in your life or something predictable. It kept you on your toes. I thought it was a good movie. Again, Takeshi Kitano knows how to make a great movie, and I've only watched two. So this just comedy. It's a comedy film. Serious, Kitano can do well. Comedy, Kitano does really well.
Yeah, so I told you guys a little bit while we were watching the movie about Kitano's background in stand-up and bonsai. And so you can really see it on full display here in the movie. Even though he's not the one doing the comedy, he directs it so well. And so you have all of his friends in this movie. You've got Dan Kan or Don Kan. I don't know how to say it, but I'm sure it's one of the two. So you've got him. You've got Susumu Terajima. Probably butchered his name, but longtime friend of Kitano. Big collaborators. They're in everything together. So you see all these different guys that are friends with Kitano in this movie, and they're also playing roles that they're not, they don't play very often. So I feel like this was probably just a fun movie for all of them to make together. And I personally, I have a strong attachment to this movie because it's just it was like a hidden gem to me when I watched it. I was like, I need to show people this. And so I probably bored my brothers to death with it, but I remember showing them like dozens of times, and they both have the same reaction, and that's like halfway through it starts to fall off, and they lose interest in the final act really. With this isn't too spoilery, but there's a thing that happens, a very big thing that happens to our main character towards the end, and the movie just goes batshit bonkers, and it just goes off the rails big time. So
one of the go ahead.
No, go ahead. No.
I had so one of the things I did want to talk about with this movie is normally in comedy, there's a very big rule, and that is yes and. Like when you're making a comedy, you have a situation arise, and then you say yes, and this is going to happen, and you keep building on that, and that's normally how comedies are made. There are so many times in this movie where a situation could arise, but they just say no, and that's the end of it. There's no explanation as to why it didn't happen. There's no it's just, and that is one of my favorite things in comedy, is subverting expectations, but not only doing it in like the normal way, but like with zero context. I'll just this is not a spoiler because you couldn't tell when this is in the movie, but like there's a part where like a boss of some kind comes up and like is carried in on a chair, and it looks all ceremonial, and he's like, listen to me, and then the two dudes are like basically like, no, fuck off, and then he just gets taken away. Like that would never happen in a normal comedy. Like it would be like, that would be like a plot pusher. Like they would use him coming in to like make another joke, but he just gets shooed off.
He comes back like 2 more times, right?
Like that, and then he comes back the last time with like the least convincing thing, and that's the one that gets them to listen. Like it's it's incredible. It's so many moments of like that where it's just like, oh, you think this is about to happen? No, actually, we're just going to move on to the next scene.
There's so many things that happen unexpectedly too. They just just flash something that you think is going to that is happening, and then it's like, nope, that didn't happen.
Oh yeah, so many.
It's great. It's Kitano mastered the spoof comedy, in my opinion, and I don't know why he didn't continue, because he definitely has the talent for it. And
I would have loved to have seen more of these films. Yeah, for sure, more of these films.
It's fun to see Kitano riff on The Blind Swordsman, and then like 8-9 years later do The Blind Swordsman, but his own iteration where he is Satoichi. So super fun. For anyone that doesn't know what this movie's about, basically a guy wants to have car sex. He wants to buy a car so that he can have sex with a girl in it, because he sees in an action movie that all the guys get girls and have sex with them in cars. So that's the premise of the film. And you may forget that by halfway or about 75% of the way through.
I did.
There was a moment right around the end, like around maybe 10 to 15 minutes before the end, where I was like, damn, this all started because he wanted car sex. I realized it. Like it wasn't constantly on my mind. It came back to me.
It wasn't money. It wasn't, to be comfortable in life. No. All he wanted was car sex.
He's a simple man.
A very simple man with a very not simple life.
Yeah, absolutely. Kitano does make an appearance per usual his movies. Usually he's the main character, but he took a back seat in this one to kind of let Dan Can, whichever, play the lead, and I think he did incredible. I love his performance in this movie. He's very just there, but I think it works for the character in the movie. And the comedy, again, it's just so funny. It's definitely a hidden gem, I would say, because so many great movies released in 1994. And I remember recently I was looking at a list because I was going to do a challenge, a community challenge, in like the Blu-ray, I think it was these guys I watched called the Rad Pack, and they were wanting people to list their 9 favorites of 1994. And I look at the list, and my first pick was Getting Any. I was like, that's for sure going to be like the first thing on my list, because I just think so many people need to see this. Now, ultimately, I didn't make the list, but if I did, for me, that would be very high on the list for 1994. And just getting into like what I would rate this, I would give this a 4 out of 5. I don't think, I think it's fun. It's very, very fun. And I love the movie. But if I were to compare it to other Kitano movies, to me, this one doesn't hold up as well as something like Fireworks, but completely different genres. So,
yes.
Ultimately, though, very fun movie. Again, I think it's a hidden gem. I think it's very, very good. And I love the craziness, the wackiness of the movie. I just think for me, it would be a 4 out of 5 because, again, I can't hold it to the same standard as something like Fireworks. Even though they're completely different genres. I just think on my list of Kitano movies, it would be on the lower end, but all Kitano movies are incredible. So it doesn't, that's not to shit on the movie or anything. I think everyone should still see it. It is a hit.
It's a great movie. It's a great movie. Truly, it really is a great movie. But if, like you said, if you're gonna compare Getting Any to any other Kitano film, I mean, I agree with you. I think it is a 4 out of 5.
I would love to see us do a list at the end of this Kitano series and see where we all think the Kitano movies rank.
Yeah. Oh, we should do like a tier list.
Yeah, we could do that. For sure.
Yeah.
For me personally, I'm being honest. I really, really like this movie. Like I'm a big fan of like sketch comedy and stuff like that, like setting up premises and having bits. And I thought this movie, I loved it. I thought that he did an incredible job. I thought that this was just as funny as any like any skits I'd seen anywhere else. And that's kind of what it feels like, is a long series of like skits that he thought of and was like, this would be hilarious. And my rating is I gave it a 4.5. Nice. I gave it 4.5 out of 5. I really, really love this movie. I think I rated Fireworks 5 stars. So I mean, it's still lower than Fireworks, but I love sketch comedy so much, and I think that really elevated it for me. I just all the times, already what I'd said, like all the times they just say no when they normally would be saying yes. It's just, I loved it so much.
And then, like, getting into the soundtrack, it had such a banging soundtrack. The soundtrack was so good.
Yes.
I love the music in this movie. And it's just, I feel like that's, a thing with Kitano's movies. He's such an auteur when it comes to making movies. Everything is just perfect. And it's incredible. I've always been a long-time fan of Kitano, and I'm glad that I was able to sit here and watch this movie with you guys, because, again, it's one of those that I've just been, like, dying to share with everybody, because nobody here knows about it. I could show it to somebody, the DVD, and they're going to be like, what is that? Which, speaking of which, I'm not going to grab it, it's across the room, but the DVD, I think, is all we have in the U.S., and you guys probably saw it was pretty grainy, and it needs a Blu-ray, like, bad. I would push for a Blu-ray big time, but I don't know, you know. I don't know what the rights issues are or anything like that. I don't know if you guys know about that sort of thing, but it's hard for certain movies to come out of Japan, I think. So
they're strict on it, though, aren't they? They're
I think they're a lot more strict. So, but either way, in closing for me, I mean, if you guys got anything, Getting Any is incredible. I love the movie. I think it's really good, but I give it a 4 out of 5. I can't wait for us to get into some of his more, like, even though they're like completely different films, Boiling Point, Violent Cop, a lot of those movies, and you guys can really see where Kitano, where he really wanted to focus on. And again, I think he definitely has a place in comedy and should have stayed making films like this. Should have continued making films like this. Sorry.
Yeah. I definitely think I wonder if when this movie came out in Japan, it was not received well, and that's why he didn't make more movies like this. Because
could be.
I can see it. Like, it's maybe in a time where they were still they weren't quite as like reserved as they used to be, but they were still. It was like 1994, so like they weren't like super out like they are now, but they were still pretty reserved in their way of living. So maybe it wasn't received well. I don't know.
It definitely pushes the boundary of what I've seen from that time in terms of like what could be showed on screen. So I will say that, because the whole bathhouse scene, I was kind of like, I was kind of surprised that they included that. So. Well, not surprised. I was surprised that it was so open. Everything was shown. So, I think you're right. Maybe that is the case. This is also his return to comedy after doing Violent Cop and a few others. So he had made these like dark, gritty, films, crime films, and then comes back with to comedy with Getting Any. So. Yeah, people were probably thrown off a little bit by him returning.
So it's a complete change of pace than what they're expecting from the Kitano film.
Absolutely.
I think this movie shows the brilliance of Takeshi Kitano. I mean, like you said, everything that he's put into his movies is perfect, whether it be the scenery, or the set, the music, the lightings, the small little details in each individual scene. I mean, it's perfect. And that's honestly, that's hard to find in a director, producer, whatever you want to call it. It's hard to find in a good director nowadays.
For sure. I think that's just one of the things that strikes me so much about Kitano is just his drive, and the fact that he stars in his own movies, he directs them, a lot of times he writes them and helps produce them. So he does a little bit of everything for his movies. And everybody that I've seen interviews of people talking about working with him and things, and everybody talks about how he'll come in, he'll shoot a scene, and that'll be it. There aren't many takes. He does everything. They talk about how quickly he films. And he'll, like most actors, talk about how when they worked with Kitano, they had to they didn't have to work for very long that day. Like, they came in, filmed the scene, and then went home. Where most movies, they're like doing so many reshoots, retakes, and they're there all day. They claim that he's like really quick to work with, and I think that could also play into how he wants it to be so perfect that he doesn't have to do multiple takes because it's perfect the first time. So
he plans it so meticulously that he runs it once and that's all he needs.
Yeah.
Everything's in place before he starts.
Right.
It's almost a muscle memory to him, where he knows everything that he's put into it, like the back of his hand. It's just easy.
Yeah, so Getting Any, I highly recommend it. I think it's an incredible movie. It's so fun. If you want something to just like kind of turn off and just watch and laugh, you'll laugh a bunch. You'll say what the fuck a bunch. You'll have many of those what the fuck moments. I highly recommend it. I think it's a great film, a great watch for sure.
Very good film.
You guys got anything else?
I don't think so. I think it's this movie will speak for itself.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Absolutely.
So, I guess in closing, this is our review of Getting Any by Takeshi Kitano, 1994. If you like this kind of content, be sure to like and subscribe and hit the bell below to be notified on all future videos. And we'll see you next time.